Buenos días. Bonjour. Ohayou gozaimasu. Es lunes. Nous sommes lundi. Getsuyobi desu yo. It is Metacognition Monday, and it's time to talk about how your brain works. And now I am teaching you language acquisition techniques. These are philosophies on how best to learn language. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the silent way. The silent way has several tenets, all right? First is that language is not merely mimicry. You're not just parroting back. Learners are responsible for their own learning. So don't ask me to improve your grade because you should have been doing it to begin with. And you'll need to test and retest your own hypotheses. Okay? So this means you try something and see how it works, and then you formulate a new idea, and then you try that and you see how it works and you formulate a new idea. And I'm not telling you how or why or for what reason anything works. All right. So the silent way, what does it look like? It looks like it's pretty quiet, right? I'm going to tell you how it was being in a class with a teacher of the silent way. This is off of a website for the silent way. Students need to be more observant. You guys are in charge of your own learning. You must be willing to let go and willing to discover the language. So don't look to me for answers. And you have to have a positive attitude because you can't shut yourself down. The teacher's going to model a word, a phrase, sentence, and you guys respond somehow. And then you create your own utterances, your own sentences by putting together old and new information. And we're going to see this a lot in all the different methods. The teacher's modeling is very minimal in this. Okay, this is where the silent part of silent way comes from. Okay, so we need Cuisinart rods. These are normally from math class, and you know that I'm a poor teacher, and that's why of all the techniques I've talked about, I don't dabble in this one very much because I don't have the money outlay for all the accoutrements that go with it. And you'll notice, you know that we have a lot of games that I play with. They look like little Lego blocks, and I use those in place of Cuisinart rods. Okay, so you've seen me putting them together, and we use those in lots of games. All right, I'm not talking about the game where we're each holding a different color cube and we're going around the room trading them back and forth. This is when I take them and stack them up to make my own poor man's Cuisinart rods. Okay, these actually were invented for math class, but then were appropriated by the people who created the silent way. All right, so let me tell you about my experience with the teacher who taught with the silent way. All right, so we come into class and he takes his bucket of Cuisinart rods and he dumps them on the table, and then he arranges them. All right, and then did I mention the name of this is the silent way? So he's just silent. He's just dumped them out and arranged them. He's not saying anything. And the minutes are ticking by and we're kind of waiting for him to start class. I mean, obviously he started class because he's arranged all the Cuisinart rods, you know. And we're just kind of looking at him and we're looking at each other. And eventually we get kind of nervous and we start laughing. And I'm probably the one who cracked the first joke. Okay? And at that moment, he pointed at me. And then he made like a symbol with his hands to like shorten it until he got me saying just a little sound. Not the whole sentence I had said, not a word, but just a part of that word. He kept like bringing his fingers closer and closer together until I understood by his gestures that I was just to say part of the word. And then when I said part of the word, then he held up whatever Cuisinart rod correlated to that sound. All right. And then he waited for somebody else to say something, a different sound. And then he did the same thing until we didn't have that many because it was hard to keep in our head. But we had maybe 2 or 3 sounds. And then he started putting the rods together and pointing at us. And we had to put the sounds together. So it was really the silent way. So each color of a Cuisinart rod stands for a different sound. Now in every silent way classroom, you're going to have these posters all over the place with these color-coded words. And the color-coded words, they're very beautiful, rainbow-colored, you know, and they apply to the sounds of the words. So you'll notice that's the part that I take a lot from Silent Way, is sometimes when I'm introducing a word to you, I will have color-coded it. So here's an example of a teacher in the classroom, and she's got the color-coded board right behind her. All right, so the core tenets again of the Silent Way. Students should be speaking truth about themselves. So there's a lot of textbooks that just have you parrot stuff like, I like dogs. Well, what if you don't like dogs? I ate pizza for breakfast. Well, what if you didn't eat pizza for breakfast? Okay, so the idea with the Silent Way is you should never be saying anything that isn't true. Okay, this is constructivism, which means you're constructing a sentence. Another belief they have is that language is not for communication, but rather for self-expression. And there is no overlap between the two concepts. I struggle with this a bit because I think language is for both. But okay, I just need you to know that this method, language is for self-expression only, which is why you're only speaking the truth about yourself. For me, the second reason I don't dabble in it too much is it really suffers from one person at a time syndrome, as I call it. Everyone is standing there patiently listening to one person talk at a time. And I don't like the passivity. I don't like it when people are just waiting their turn. I want everyone to be using their skills as much as possible. And students get frustrated with no teacher guidance, because after a while the teacher steps back and it's all about you discovering the language on your own. That's a really popular belief system in education right now. It's like, oh, the students should be able to teach each other and the teacher is just the facilitator. And that's true to an extent, but there's sometimes, we used to call these foreign languages. They're so different from anything you've experienced that without a teacher, it's really hard to progress. You're going to hit a wall. And so for me, when I'm introducing new stuff, I do it in an explicit fashion, So I don't know. It's a fun one to play with, and you've certainly seen me playing with it a lot. We've done certain elements from it, but this is the technique I use the least. But it definitely has some fun parts to it.